Welcome to another episode of the Expat Focus podcast. I'm your host, Carly, covering all aspects of life abroad, and a key one, of course, is finding a place to live in your new country. We've explored this topic with a number of guests in past episodes, looking at the rental and property buying process in the USA, Poland, Australia, France, Estonia, Vietnam. You can scroll back and have a listen to those interviews. But today we're focusing on finding a place to rent in the UK. Expat entrepreneurs Mayank, Marthur and Octavian are the founders of Avasa AI. They met when Mayank was searching for a property to rent in London, and they realised there was a gap in the market for a complete home search solution that really works for the tenant. So they created it. I hope you enjoy this chat. And of course, if you want to join the conversation, ask questions, or share your own property search story, get in touch with Expat Focus on social media. So we know that the greatest ideas tend to come from lived experiences. To start with, I'd love to know a little bit about yourselves and what led you to try to change the way that people rent in the UK.
Sure, happy to. So I used to work in investment banking once upon a time here in London, rented about 3 times, went to India, created a startup, rented in 2 different cities, and then came back to London in December 2015 and rented a property here again. And every single time it was, let's just put it lightly, very painful experience. So that kind of triggered the idea for us to try and figure out how can we make the rental search super easy for not just for ourselves, but for everybody else out there as well. And that's actually during the rental search in December 2015. That's when I met Octavian actually for the first time. And then we jointly decided to create this platform Avasa, where we focus on helping tenants to find their property super easily.
Yes, hi, and I am an ex-estate agent. Actually, Mayank was my client back in the day. That's how we've met. And I used to work at some top estate agencies in London, and mainly in London prime center locations. From my side, I saw the pain, how the applicants, the tenants, they were going through, and how fragmented was the rental process. And from a state agency point of view, I also see that it's almost impossible to build a relation with a tenant, as even if you've done a good job, you may not have had the right property for them, in which case they still have to go and start over again with the next agent.
So you guys really are bringing both sides of the coin, both perspectives to what you've built here in this app, aren't you?
That is right, and that's one challenge we had seen in the industry very, very early on, that a lot of the platforms that were being developed, I'm talking about in 2016, 17, probably even now, a lot of the platforms were being built by people who have been in the industry for a long time. They see a specific issue from the industry perspective, and they want to create that solution. But as a renter, or as somebody who's looking for a property, a lot of those platforms fall dramatically short of my expectations. So we thought, that in modern world where people are so used to ordering things super easily, whether it's food or shopping or any number of other things, home search cannot be that much more difficult. And we stitch together this experience, which allows them to go through the whole experience within the same environment, rather than jumping from one fragment to the other, as Octavian was pointing out earlier.
So Mayank, tell me a little bit about those pain points that you had searching for a rental multiple times in London.
I think the first critical one we always faced was there was just not enough time in the day to call estate agents and run after them, or get them keep answering their phone calls and email address and emails, or run around for the viewings, etc. That is a crucial point where we keep running into that from all kinds of tenants, not just those who are within the UK, but also from those who are coming from outside the UK. The second major issue that we kept running into is that as a tenant, there's no one who is your friend in the transaction. Landlords have their estate agents who look after the landlord's interests. Estate agents pay a listing fee to the platforms that look after estate agents' interests. But as a tenant, there's absolutely no one who's looking after my interest, right? And that in turn leads to all kind of problems in terms of a lot of time wasted looking at all kind of properties that don't match my requirements, or spending countless hours online doing research day in day out, answering phone calls and whatnot. So all of these things combined, what these things lead to is that on an average, it takes over 23 days to find a property. And this is basically when people are busy with their life, with their work, with their families, etc. They have to carve out all of this time in addition to all those responsibilities to find a property. And that's very painful.
Yeah, and I guess if you're moving from another country to the UK, spending close to a month in premium accommodation or a hotel while you're trying to find your feet and get settled, that can add up.
And that's exactly how it is. If you imagine as an expat, you're arriving in UK, you don't know the areas, you don't know the prices, you don't understand the rental process, and the very only persons who you're going to meet are the estate agents, the ones which you know from the very beginning that they are not working on your side and they are representing the landlord. So it's a huge trust barrier from the very beginning of the rental search process.
So I know from being in expat focus groups on Facebook for many years that, of course, as soon as someone new to a country pops up and says, where should I search for a property? Those websites that are top of mind, Rightmove and Zoopla, for example, for the UK. How does your app Avasa AI fit in with those, and what does it do differently?
So what we are focused on is the end-to-end journey. So not just showing them the top-end listings and then people have to go running to each agent individually. We help them identify which areas and which property work for their specific lifestyle criteria. So very simple example is if there are, let's say it's a couple or a family that's moving in and both the partners, they work at two different locations and the kids go to school at a third location, they may want a place which is easily commutable to each one of those three locations, right? So how can you identify properties, areas and properties that work for all the three commutes very easily, and then layer on things like I want to be close to, let's say, high street, or I want to be next to very close to restaurants and stuff like that. So we start from that perspective to help them identify these properties very quickly. Within a few taps, you can actually identify multiple areas in your chosen city that match these requirements. And then our Sherpa, which is a concierge that is dedicated for every search, they take you through the whole journey. So they are with you, helping you identify the right properties, set up viewings for you. We can actually send someone inside a property to show you a live telecast of the property. So you may be in the US or in Singapore, doesn't matter. We can still show you the property. And this is somebody who is working for you. So they are instructed to identify what's wrong with the property in equal measure as what is good with the property. And really, we are with the tenant all the way till they have signed the lease. So we review the lease, we make sure that all the commercial terms have gone in properly, and we ensure that they are getting the keys on time on the day of their arrival or whenever they have chosen to.
So, Octavian, with your real estate agent hat on, I'm curious about how using Avasa AI might differ from, say, if you're sitting in another country asking an estate agent in the UK to help you with this.
So the main difference between us and estate agents is that we are exclusively working for tenants. So we are not incentivized by the landlords or estate agents. And we also work across the country. So no matter where you want to live, the difference is that estate agents, they do tend to have their own patch. And sometimes it's literally just in a specific neighborhood. However, working with us, we can start the search in Bath, for example, and then move in London throughout the search, realizing that those they may be your needs or your new requirements. So that's how we really differentiate ourselves from the estate agents. And then also because, like I said, we are not incentivized by the landlords or estate agents, those remote viewings with expats and people whilst they are still abroad, they really, really work extremely well, because working with us, we are actually asking the hard questions, and we point at whatever can affect the tenant well-being during the tenancy. So we are the ones which we point if there are mold, cracks, leaks on the walls. We are the ones who check the water pressure, how the street noise level is, and so on, which is comparing with whatever else is happening in the industry, we are already far ahead.
You touched on a few things that really surprised me as a very ignorant Australian when I moved myself from Australia to the UK. I really had it in my head that, oh, well, I just need to be close to like the CBD, to like downtown. And people were like, no, you don't understand how London works and that there isn't like a central downtown. It's a very big place. And what you said about traffic noise, like there was so much traffic noise. And I found out that it's a requirement for emergency vehicles to sound their sirens going through certain intersections, for example, and all these little details that if I had known these things, I probably would have chosen differently when it came to searching for a place to live.
Yeah, reality is that most of these tenants, they don't even consider these things. So it's just after or whilst we're doing the viewings and they see the amount of questions we are asking, then they realize, okay, actually how much they don't know. But then going forward, when the time comes and when they are about to make a decision, we see them that they are much more comfortable to act quick and decisive because they already done their homework and they already been educated prior the time of taking a decision of how the property market works, on how the prices how are the prices in the area. We already identify where they can get value for money, and we are touching all these pain points and in the property. And like we are really going to the nitty gritty again, like I mentioned, even outside the property, we're checking if there are any scaffoldings around, roadworks, anything what can affect their well-being throughout the tenancy as well.
You mentioned mold, and that's actually something that some friends of mine in London have experienced in their past 3 rentals now. And it seems like the mold problem just follows them from property to property. And again, it's one of those things that unless you know what to look for, you'd have no idea that that could even be a problem.
Yes.
Indeed a huge problem. In fact, I have mold allergies as well. So this was one of the key things that when we were setting up the business, we were very keen to identify and make sure that, people can know in advance where are the problem issues. And there are a lot of telltale signs, right? So there would be a little bit of mold patch or wet patch on the ceiling or on the windowsill, or kind of a dark kind of corner in the cupboard somewhere, which when you're looking at a property by yourself, people tend to mess because there's always an estate agent who's chaperoning you and they're trying to kind of limit your time inside the property.
It's like, don't look over there.
Exactly. So, and that's the benefit our Sherpas have, because they're all trained people who know the property industry, and we give them a questionnaire to basically make sure they have hit all the right points, basically when they are showing the property or when they're inside the property, or actually even before that, when they're going inside a building or a flat, they can actually look at the street and identify all the issues that there may be.
So it really is a customized and bespoke kind of service that you offer with the Sherpa aspect of Avasa AI. And obviously, you guys don't work for free. So what sort of cost are we looking at here for someone who wants to engage with you guys to help them find their place in the UK?
So I'm happy to share also the costs involved in this. But just because you touch on how customized we are, I would really want also to point the fact that we've been discussing and we've been on the calls with so many parents of students, for example, which, for example, they consider it even more important and they appreciate it even more on what we do and how we can help. Because we were the ones which for example, if we've been dealing as a client with a single lady, for example, we've been as thorough as telling them how, I don't know, how the distance to the train station is, for example, or if it's in a back alley, or
Absolutely. Yeah. Is
as
the
as
entrance well lit? What are the neighbors like?
yes, so that's why they appreciate so much our service. Like I said, even sometimes even more the parents than the students themselves, if we're taking the students example. And Our services, they range between 250 to 750 per search. Again, not linked to the rent of the property. So our incentives are fully aligned with those of the tenants. But then if you're thinking how much money our tenants they tend to save, it's in average £4,000. And because we managed to find the properties at sometimes either lower costs, or we guide them on the right terms of and conditions, or we find them properties where they don't have to spend money on temporary accommodations. So they're just arriving in UK and they just pick up the keys and move into their own flat.
The costs kind of really level out when you're looking at the efficiency side of things, and possibly, making a mistake in signing your first contract and having to lose a bond or something like that.
Yes, indeed. And also, again, that's per search. So it can be more clients, more tenants. So it can be, for example, two sharers looking for a property. The price will still be the same. So again, even if you split that price in two, then it's really, and I'm going to use the analogy what a client of ours told us. It's almost like a no-brainer to use us, comparing with doing everything by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're multiple people, then that's really not much at all, is it? So I'm curious about the AI element of your app's name because, it's a buzzword. It's used in so many different ways these days, artificial intelligence. How does it apply in the context of your app and your service?
So, I would like to start actually by taking a step back and just reiterating that property at the core, it's a human business. People live in there, people own those things, and there's another human being who's helping you get the property. So what we have done is we have put that Sherpa or the concierge at the front and center of our offering. Behind the scenes, we have digitized and automated the process almost end to end. There are a couple of blocks that we are building right now. But on top of that automation, we have added multiple layers of AI or artificial intelligence. So our current toolkit includes things like a neural network driven recommendation engine that really understands which kind of properties you're interacting with and which ones do you like. So it will on a daily basis give you better quality recommendations. So you're not spending time every day searching through hundreds of ads. You actually see those 10, 15, 20 ads that really, really match your requirements. We have recently launched in beta version our NLP-driven chatbot, which is used to answer very simple questions that people have throughout the process. So what we have discovered over time is that probably 60, 70, 80% of the questions are more or less the same. So we are in the process to just make it even easier for the tenants to get answers to those questions. And then one key thing that's on our roadmap is actually a machine learning algorithm that we'll build later this year that will analyze the lease very quickly. And that is a very, very strong product in our view, because we have interviewed now hundreds of tenants, probably including Octavian's prior experience, thousands of tenants, and very few actually pay attention to their lease and what's written in there. It's just because it tends to be complex, and nobody likes to read legal documents. So we have now figured out a design to actually analyze those leases very quickly, and we'll build a machine learning algorithm around that. The crucial thing here is that AI is a means for us to deliver that efficient and incredible service to our clients, basically. It's not AI just for AI's sake. It's actually AI where it actually makes a huge amount of sense to fast track or give better quality results for our clients.
You're not just trying to be cool.
Well, if we look across cool, that's an added bonus for sure.
Guys, obviously, the past year has been quite unprecedented on so many levels. And I'm really curious to know, from your perspective, what are you seeing in the UK property market from both tenants and landlords' perspective when it comes to supply and demand? I mean, I remember when I moved to London, it felt like panic stations from day two that I had to go and inspect these properties and decide whether I wanted one, on the spot because there was so much competition. Is that still the case, or has the market eased up a little?
In 2020, yes, the market did ease up a little. However, in 2021, we do believe is going to be a different market altogether. So, for example, as soon as the restrictions on international travel are lifted, there will be a lot of movement in the rental market, especially in the sales market. As we know, it was still very consistent, and actually in some areas the prices grew. However, in 2021, as soon as the international travelers are lifted, then the relocations from overseas and international students, they will start to arrive in the UK. Also, what happened in 2020, people were leaving big cities because obviously with the work from home, they weren't necessarily to pay the prime prices only to live in a big city. However, now in those big cities, the prices they declined, in some cases even by 30%. So now the same people now, they are looking to come back and get better deals and lock a lower rent for the following year or years. Also, another movement will be from those people which they are looking to right size. So families, they will be looking now for bigger places, or sharers, they will be looking for better quality work from home properties from now on. And also even couples which they will look to part ways, sadly. So all this movement will create a spike in the market, possibly leading to a potential rise in rental price again in areas with high demand. Those will be mostly areas where there are work from home suitable properties. So like areas where you have loads of open spaces, or properties with gardens or near to parks, where, for example, in high density areas like, if we take London, for example, like Canary Wharf or Greenwich, where there are predominant flats available and it's a lot of supply, over there we may see even prices still declining because it's not so much outside space.
That's such a good point. And it's important to point out that you guys don't just serve London, do you? You serve across the UK in terms of property searches.
Indeed, yes. That's why we can confirm, and that's why I mentioned how everybody start to rush out from the big cities. But now we are receiving daily inquiries asking about how are the prices now in those big cities, and how they can find maybe a better property with outside space in those big cities, and what the price would be this time around comparing with the previous years.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a perfect time to negotiate. And if you are renting a tiny, zone two flat without a living room, that maybe you can upgrade and have, one less flatmate and maybe a space to do yoga in the evening.
Exactly. And I think, just adding to what Octavian just said around working from home, I think increasingly what we are seeing, it's still in a small numbers, but I suspect it will become a big trend, is this working from home will shift and become working from anywhere. So we are actually right now helping some people find a property in rural England who are moving over from the US. And they have the flexibility to work from anywhere. Till probably last year, we would have called them digital nomads. But now it's kind of reality for a lot of people who are even in jobs or freelancing. So families, even with kids, professionals, couples, or sharers, they can work from anywhere increasingly. And that effectively means that the lifestyle requirements become crucial. So they may not need to be in zones 1 and 2 in London, for example. They can easily be outside, and so long as there's good space available to work and a little bit of open space, as we just discussed, and internet connection, they can actually sit in nice location and work instead of being in cramped little central London apartment.
It's amazing how much choice is suddenly out there for people that may have felt like their rental choices was a lot more rigid and attuned to where they're working every day before.
Absolutely.
So my final question is, how soon before you make a move to the UK should you get started? I know the world's not really opening up again just yet, but we're hopeful that perhaps, fingers crossed, touch wood, maybe this summer things will start to happen. If you do have a UK move planned in 2021, how far in advance, taking into consideration the market and your services, should people get in touch and start thinking about their shortlist?
The very best advice we can give to people is, regardless if they do decide to work with us or not, but the very best advice is to start their search early. So at least 2 months in advance, because the tenancy agreements generally have a clause at the end of the tenancy where current tenants are required to give 2 months notice if they are planning to renew the tenancy or vacate the property. Hence, most of these properties can be advertised on the property portals around 1.5, 2 months in advance. So if you start your search early, you will get a chance to see all the properties available for your moving date and in your desired area. Plus, you'll have enough time to learn the rental market and to identify where you can find the most value for your money. And maybe even have time to change some of your requirements if necessary. So by doing this, you will also be much more comfortable to make a quick decision, to act fast when the right property comes across. But you don't get the same experience when you start the search late. Then even if the right property is available, you won't be able to act decisively because you haven't studied the market enough. So you won't be able to differentiate the good from the bad.
I think I would like to add here that, when clients are working with us, on an average, they view about 4.3 properties before they find what they really love. And oftentimes we see that they end up making two offers. And it's primarily because we encourage, as Octavian was saying, for them to start 1.5 to 2 months in advance of their target move-in date. I can't emphasize enough how much stress people can go through when they're looking for a property to move in next week or in 2 weeks' time, just because they started late or they couldn't find things on time. So it's really, really crucial to start that search around 2 months in advance of the target move-in date.
Yeah, definitely. And then you have a lot more choice for yourself too, don't you?
Exactly.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time to explain Avasa AI to me. And where should people go if they want to check it out and try it for themselves?
So start with our website, avasa.ai. We also have a very strong presence on Facebook and Twitter, so you can reach out to us through those channels as well. But if you go on our website, you will see a lot of content as well about finding a property. And if you want to do everything by yourself, you will get all the tips, all the templates, etc. on our website. You can just copy all those things and find the property by yourself, or simply enough, fill out a contact us form and we will reach out to you and set up a call with you.
That's it for today. Remember to subscribe to Expat Focus or follow us on your podcast app of choice so you never miss an episode. If you like what we do, please leave us a review, and I'll catch you next time.